In this module, we are going to understand how to develop a research problem. Formulation of a research problem is like an input to a study. The output of a research would be the quality of content of the research. So the validity of the associations in among the variables, etc., would be dependent upon the quality of inputs what you are supplying to the research. Hence, research problem becomes an important facet in the research process. Take time to formulate the research problem. The more clearer you are with the research problem, the easier for you to subsequently go through the other research process. A research problem is considered based on the interest. Take, for instance, you have an interest to study on human-machine interaction. So that's your interest, and how you are going to study in different domain. That would be what you would be looking into, and different facets of human-machine interaction. The magnitude of the problem. If the magnitude of the problem is too broad, then you need to break down into specific manageable chunks so that it could be researched in different phases. Take, for instance, if your interest is to develop a measure to for measuring how uh, how how ready an organization is to implement Industry 5.0. At that time, first you want to understand what are the dimensions of Industry 4.0 or Industry 5.0 by which an organization would be ready to implement it, and subsequently you have to develop the scales. So the first phase of the study would be to understanding the dimensions of Industry 5.0, and subsequently you would develop an objective scale or a subjective scale to measure this particular construct. So what we have done, the magnitude was bigger, but you have broken down into manageable chunks or phases by which this study could be conducted. Another facet would be a research gap, whether this gap exists in the academic level or the academic body of knowledge. Has this study be conducted elsewhere in some other country or some other sector? Can we import that study in this sector and it can be done? So is there a need for carrying out a research? So research gap is also an important, significant aspect. The level of expertise. As a researcher, you need expertise in the research methods in order to conduct the research. Hence, the level of expertise sometimes forms a major aspect in terms of considering whether a topic should be researched or not. The relevance of the study. If somebody is studying research or doing research on the vacuum tubes, nowadays we have transistors and also integrated circuits and even nano level microelectronic devices. So at that time, whether the significance of conducting a research on vacuum tubes or valves, is it pertinent in an electronic industry? Similarly, the concepts which are not relevant, whether there is a, so you need to ask yourselves whether this problem is relevant in the modern context. Availability of data. Sometimes the research questions are interesting. However, getting the data to conduct the research is a Herculean task. So availability of data is also an important aspect in considering whether to proceed with the research problem. Ethical issues. The ethics plays an important part in the research, whether the whether you are doing a research on a human participant or an animal. So whether the ethical framework within the country permits this research to be investigated. Some of the steps which one can use broadly in order to formulate a research problem would be to identify the broad field or the subject area of interest to you, maybe service quality. Dissect the broad area into sub areas. I want to understand the service quality in an educational sector. Select what is more important to you, more of important or interest to you. Maybe service quality in engineering education. Raise the question. Try to review articles on service quality in engineering education. And then you come to know that service quality engineering education in an online education is not researched. This would be the area which you are going to look into. Formulate your objective, assess your objectives, and then try to understand through previous literature why this research need to be conducted. This brings the end of this module.